Hello, I'd like to respond to the President's State of the Union address and talk to you tonight about the real state of our Union and bring to you the full story. Let's begin with the President taking credit for the combat in Afghanistan and the wars being over. He said very slightly that 15,000 troops would remain. Just what will those 15,000 troops be doing? Are they not still Americans risking their lives in an active war zone? How many American soldiers right now and special forces are overseas conducting combat operations for anti-terrorism? So there's still active combat going on, no matter what you call it. In addition, the President made no mention that he wanted to start a war in Syria and put American lives at risk. No mention of that. He just wanted to sound like the great peacemaker, and war's over. Well, now let's talk about the economy. Everybody wants to talk about the economy. The President says that 11 million jobs were created. 11 million jobs. Gives this as a growth standard. He did not once mention what type of jobs were being created. He did not mention who was getting the jobs or what salary they were being paid. See, the truth is, the full story is, many of the people who had full-time jobs can now get part-time work. What they can't get are more full-time jobs. That's a problem. The job creation that the President is talking about is mainly part-time work, which has become more available. Those jobs are increasing. Try going from a full-time job and a decent salary to, say, working at McDonald's or Burger King for part-time work, or working at your local store even for part-time work. It's not going to support you. That's the job creation he's talking about. I'm not saying that full-time jobs haven't been created either. I'm saying that the majority of job growth has been part-time jobs, from what I've seen. Now, the President also mentioned that small businesses are actually beginning to raise wages. Well, that sounds lovely. How many small businesses are beginning to raise wages? How many Americans, you or I, actually work for a small business? So this wage increase he's talking about that small businesses are beginning to give, just how many people are really getting a wage increase? Come on, let's face reality. Unless you're under some sort of contract, your wage has not increased in years. Employers are not and are still not giving raises. So let's cut the BS here, okay? It's not the truth. It's a half-truth, which makes it a lie. Now, he also talked about exports being at record levels, American companies exporting. Okay, well, in the same breath of the small businesses, well, who is that really benefiting? Large companies make larger profits when they export overseas. No mention about small business there, was there? Because it's not the small businesses who are gaining from the exports, it's the large corporations. In addition to that, he talked about the stock market being at record highs. Now that's really funny coming from a president who says he wants the rich to pay their fair share. Now, I'm not denying that some, maybe even many Americans have a small amount of money invested in the stock market, in mutual funds, 401ks, things like that. But come on, let's face reality. This middle class that the President keeps talking about, people like you and I, we don't really have a whole lot, if any, money invested in the stock market. So, to use the stock market being at record highs, translation, the rich are getting richer, The companies are making more money, the investors. That's not you or I having more money in our pockets. So the fact of the matter is, the state of the economy is, while jobs are being created, they're mainly part-time jobs, which aren't enough to support yourself. While the stock market is at record highs, that doesn't affect the average person or put more money in their pocket. And with small businesses raising, or some small businesses raising their employees' salaries, that doesn't put more money in most people's pockets because most people aren't affected by that. If even a large number of the small businesses are raising their wages. Okay, so next, let's talk about energy. The president took credit for the reduced dependence on foreign oil. Yes, we have a reduced dependence on foreign oil. Funny, those policies were started by the Bush administration. It's really an interesting fact. Most of the things the president has been hesitant about or against, such as fracking, natural gas, pipelines, that's what has increased the American oil production and made us less dependent on foreign oil. And those were the policies put in place by the prior administration. Most of what he's against is actually what reduced the dependence on foreign oil. In addition, he took credit for gas prices being at an all-time low, at least indirectly. He mentioned it anyway. Well, the President of the United States has absolutely nothing to do with gas prices, whether they're low or high. That has to do with the market economy, speculation, world events, but it's got nothing to do with the President of the United States. So to throw that in there was just totally dishonest, because gas being lower and people having more money in their pockets because of it was not one of his achievements. One way or the other, he didn't have anything to do with that. He wouldn't have anything to do with it if gas prices went through the roof tomorrow either. It's the markets that determine that. Okay, well, now let's skip to education. Test scores in reading and math are at an all-time high. Standardized test scores. Since when was tests ever a determination of intelligence? Some people do very well on tests, and some people don't. I know students that get test anxiety, that are having trouble passing these tests. Others may not know a whole lot about critical thinking skills, logic, or real intelligence, but be able to take tests really well. So to say test scores are at all-time highs in reading and math and make it sound like the education system in America is doing so well is dishonest. Same thing goes for those high school graduation rates the president mentioned. Didn't talk about Common Core or schools changing their standards. He didn't talk about any of the documented cases in several states where schools have been caught and states have been caught reducing their standards to graduate just to keep people graduating. He talked about record numbers of people graduating from college. Well, yeah, that's a great thing, right? A college education. What good does a college education do if you can't pay for it? And if you can't find a job afterwards? Just because there's a record number of people graduating from college does not mean things are going good right now. In fact, that's part of the problem. If you ask the employers, they've got so many qualified candidates to choose from. And his proposal to give everybody free community college is just going to flood the job market with more candidates. So the employers are either going to raise their standards and say, okay, well, now everybody's got 2 years of college, we're going to require 4, or it's going to be tougher to find a job because everybody's going to have those qualifications. That's just the reality of it, but that's not mentioned either. Let's talk about healthcare, my personal favorite. He mentioned 10 million people who didn't have insurance are now insured. He did not once address how many people have lost their coverage due to the Affordable Health Care Act. More than that, more significantly, he did not address how many people have willingly dropped their insurance coverage as a result of the Affordable Health Care Act because they can't afford the new insurance rates. Those plans cost, say, $200 a month for some people. People don't have that kind of money, but the Affordable Health Care Act increased the cost of insurance. Some people are saying, I'm just going to pay the penalty. I'm not going to have health insurance. And some of those very same people had health insurance before that and would have gotten it. No mention of that. He also gave healthcare inflation at an all-time low, the cost of healthcare inflation. Notice the wording. Healthcare inflation is at an all-time low. He did not say the cost of healthcare was at an all-time low. He said the inflation rate was at an all-time low. He made no mention of how deductibles, the amount of money you have to pay before your insurance policy kicks in for healthcare, are at all-time highs. How they went from, on average, $500 to $2,000 and up. He made no mention of how the cost of health insurance itself has increased. So he told a half-truth. He did not tell the full story. Now, he also made it out to seem like to follow his lead with these things was the right thing to do. And I just want to let you know, the President of the United States does not define moral absolutes. He cannot tell you what the right thing to do is. That's a matter of opinion. Just because it's the President's opinion does not mean it's the right thing to do. If that was the case, then everybody should have supported the Gulf War under Bush because the President thought it was the right thing to do, so it must be the right thing to do. So I want to remind everyone, just because the President says it's the right thing to do, does not mean it's the right thing to do. The economy, healthcare, education, he took credit for all these things, but he did not tell you the full story.